Hello guys, this is your King of the Night, it's Valentine EX Turk, and I got another Final Fantasy segment. Actually one of my favorite games in the series, and also a spin-off sequel game to its original predecessor. We're going to be talking about Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus, and why it's a really good game and a brilliant game, a brilliant part of the completion of Final Fantasy VII. And why it's a good game. So this will be, I wouldn't say it's a list, but it's more of a why I think it's a good game, and I think it should get more praise than what it is. Yes, people didn't like it. Well, it's like a first-person shooter. It's like Call of Duty. Well, yeah, Square Enix wanted to do something different, and Vincent Valentine can only be used with a gun. I mean, if they did a turn-based thing, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have got localization. And again, I get tired of the weeaboos in the Final Fantasy community goes like, localization shouldn't matter, it should be about piecing us. No, if I know anything about gaming, again, I have a friend who's taking animation, and it's about the cash that you're going to make. So you're going to need to localize your games, you know. People think that the Dirge of Cerberus is Shadow the Hedgehog for the Sonic series, but it's not. Because Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus was brilliant and one of the best spin-off games in the series, in my opinion. The real reason why that is for me is that it put a lot more backstory. It put a lot more backstory than even a little more than Crisis Core did. I get Crisis Core was trying to make some new characters and make it work, but Dirge of Cerberus did it in a brilliant way while still keeping the old continuity that we all that we all love, such as the birth of Sephiroth, the death of Lucretia. Well, I wouldn't say death per se, but before she gets crystallized, and when Sephiroth gets handed to Professor Hojo to raise in a laboratory, which explained a little bits and pieces of that. Also, Vincent Valentine's past with the Turks and past with the Shinra Electric Company. You know, Vincent Valentine has been around since the birth of the Soldier program. That's how come he was able to tell Cloud about that stuff, because when Cloud said he was part of Soldier, that's why Vincent Valentine was like, you must know Lucretia, because Lucretia was actually part of the Soldier program, as well as Vincent Valentine's father, you know, designed the outlines of the Soldier program. You know, Deep Ground was actually the very first Soldier program ever created, and it was the worst version of it, but it was still one of the original. I know you're gonna say, oh no, naysayers will say, no, that's not true. Yes, it is. Professor Grumroyer, the student of Professor Gas, has also thought of a way to put Genova cells in different kinds of people. It was kind of, it's kind of collected thing. Professor Hojo, Professor Grimoire, and Professor Gas were in it on the old time. The only thing is, Professor Gas had had morality issues, and was like, this is not moral. I don't want to do this anymore. And, he went to teach Lucretia everything he knew, which actually could probably which also made a perfect love story between Lucretia and Vincent, because, Lucretia was the student of Professor Grimoire. So it put a lot more backstory, but, it was talking about the beginning of the Shinra as a company, as the soldier breeding company. It started as an electric company, and Vincent was part of that as a Turk. So if anything, the Turks probably came out a lot first before Soldier did, but Vincent knows the Soldier program and everything because he was involved with it, having to spy on Hojo and having to protect Lucretia because Hojo's not what is it called? He's not trusted by Shinra. He is not trusted by Shinra. So they sent Vincent as a Turk to watch over Lucretia. Lucretia's like, oh shit, that's my professor's son. Oh, okay. That's why she another reason why she went with went with Hojo instead of Vincent, because she felt bad that his father got killed. Of course, Vincent found out, and he wasn't mad, of course, because Vincent's a chill guy like that. But the point is, it put a lot more backstory than It put a lot more backstory. Yes, he had to revisit everything that brought him pain in the first place, but then you get to understand why he was in pain all the time through Final Fantasy VII. And you get to find out the birth of Sephiroth. The most important thing. I don't care what you say. Yes, Final Fantasy VII is about Cloud Strife, but it's also about Sephiroth as well. Both parallels. And what is perfect than a cutscene about how Sephiroth was conceived and born, as well as one of the Avalanche members, Vincent Valentine. You know, yes, and the gameplay was pretty brilliant because it gave it better localization. Besides the story and stuff like that, it also put in the new characters where it still fit in the old continuity, such as we got Genesis at the end if you got the secret ending. And also, Deep Brown was there before the traditional soldier program. They were trapped underground during Final Fantasy VII thanks to the meteor. But Shinra was going to send their backup unit when President Shinra was still alive, called Deep Ground. In fact, I think it was President Shinra. I think before when Sephiroth tried to attack President Shinra was probably trying to call Deep Ground to take care of Sephiroth before Sephiroth got to President Shinra. Or should I say Genova, as disguised as Sephiroth. But he was about to call the Deep Ground unit, but, you know, got too late, which explains what the Deep Ground unit is. So, it put in new characters by still staying to the original canon source. It didn't conflict with Final Fantasy VII at all. In fact, it was actually brilliant on the fact that it didn't conflict with Final Fantasy VII. In fact, it was perfect. It was just as good as Crisis Core. I think the only thing people actually had a big problem with is the gameplay. But again, Vincent Valentine uses a gun. It'd be kind of hard to do a turn-based combat game with Vincent Valentine as a gun user, you know? And besides, localization. You know, first-person shooters started getting more popular in the West, and, you know, I think that's why they wanted to make something different, because if you know anything about Square Enix, they're about localization. They want to actually make more money than they already have. So, in order for them to make money that they can that will make them more money, why not have some Call of Duty type gameplay in a Final Fantasy? But you also got to choose either Call of Duty first person, or you got to choose to be in third person as well. So it played like Call of Duty and Devil May Cry games, because you got the transform, which was pretty awesome. You got the transform into the limit breaks. Now they only limited to 2 because I understand that'd be too much to animate. You know, it took a whole lot to animate just once, so, you know, you got to transform into the limit break of Galleon Beast and Chaos. Now, you could earn Chaos in the whole entire game if you beat the extra missions, which challenged people. People complain about it, but it challenged you. It actually separated people that are true fans of this game to people that just play Final Fantasy as a casual gamer, because people would try, because, you know, only if you wanted to try an arcade style first-person shooter with third-person, you know, with optional third-person, I think the extra challenge missions would be perfect, and I think they took that out of the online. And if you know, and it would have been perfect if they would have kept it online. If they made the remake for PS4, like not the remake, but HD collection for PS4. It would play online perfectly no offense, Final Fantasy 15 would, because you got the FPS element, you know, as well. Even though they would have to change the color of all the other characters, but I'm pretty sure they would add characters like Vice. It'd be like Star Wars Battlefront if they kept it online. If they made it online on a PS4 HD collection, it'd be like Battlefront. You know, you get to choose Vice, Vincent, Shulk, Azul, all your favorite characters, and even possibly Cloud if you want to just do third person, hack and slash. But nonetheless, it was brilliant because the gameplay was smooth, and gameplay was smooth, and anyone can play this game. Anyone you don't even have to be a Final Fantasy fan to actually enjoy Dirge of Cerberus. Dirge of Cerberus can be played by all. even people who don't like FPS. And I know this because my cousin, Game Over Continue, I'm gonna throw your name out there, introduced me to Dirge Cerberus. And I was like, holy shit, I fucking love this game. I love it so much, I even ended up buying a costume and even changing my YouTube username to Vincent Valentine. But yeah, that's where I got the Vincent Valentine. The X Turk comes from X, mercenary. When you start the new game in Final Fantasy VII, but that's not important. The most important thing is, I think it was a brilliant thing because not only it tied in the stories together, it actually puts more backstory to Final Fantasy VII, but it introduced new characters without affecting canon at all. Because Deep Brown was a secret unit that President Shimura had, that he probably would have called if he had enough time before what I call fake or ghost Sephiroth got to him. So it also had the birth of Sephiroth. Now you can't tell me that shit's not important. You got the birth of Sephiroth, even if they didn't put very much Vincent Valentine, they only put more Lucretia, it would have made more sense because it put the actual birth of Sephiroth. It actually explained questions that Final Fantasy VII refused to put in there, because it was all vague and left to interpretation. But I also like the fact, again, Vincent Valentine was the main character. He was a badass main character, and it's like he was also beloved just like Zack Fair was. So why not actually make a game based off of the badass who looks like Alucard from Hellsing, And to be honest, he was my favorite member of Avalanche. Vincent Valentine's always been my favorite member of Avalanche. I know you think Cloud or Sephiroth. Sephiroth's not an Avalanche member, but you get the point. Sephiroth's my favorite villain in Final Fantasy, but if I had to choose a Final Fantasy Avalanche member, and it could be any Avalanche before Crisis Avalanche or present day Avalanche, I'd choose Vincent Valentine because he's the best. He's one of the best tacticians, smart. He has instant regeneration thanks to chaos, and he's the very first Turk that has the same power scale as a first-class soldier, even without chaos and all that stuff. He would still be the power of first-class soldier. Hence why, he was on equal terms to Vice the Accumulating, But nonetheless, I think it's a brilliant game because the story fits in well. They actually put new characters without affecting the original canon. In fact, it tied in with the original canon of Final Fantasy VII, as well as the secret ending made sense to Final Fantasy VII, because Genesis didn't really die at the end of Crisis Core, as you could see. He became G. But also, the gameplay is really good because this is the Final Fantasy game besides 15 that you can get your parents into, maybe not your parents, because I don't think parents like FPS, but other friends. If you got friends who like FPS, or they'll play games like Devil May Cry, this is the game to do it, because this is one of the games to turn people on to the Final Fantasy community, because it played more Western, and I guess that's why fans hate it. I guess that's why Final Fantasy fans hate it, because it played Western. But it's like, again, I agree with the localization, because you do have to localize. You have to market yourself, and you can't just have one type of market and stay to that market. And that's what I like about Square Enix when it comes to that. Now, Square Enix, I have beef with sometimes because they do some bad things, but this is where they actually done a brilliant, good thing, because this game I could just introduce to anyone, and they'll like it. It'd be likable. It's like Final Fantasy 15. It's one of those games you could just, yeah, it does have and it kept your RPG element, because you still had to use your XP that you get from each level to either get gil or money to get better guns and better stuff, or you could actually get or you could actually put to your EXP total and level up as well. And again, and also, this is actually about Vincent Valentine even more popularity, because there's a lot of cosplays at cons of him because of this game. Because this game was beloved, despite what some people say in the fan base. It's not like the Japanese Final Fantasy stuff with the RPG. Well, you know what? That's just too bad. I like the game the way it is, and I'm never changing my. I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-E-N-T. Do you know what that mean, man? I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-E-N-T. Do you know what that mean?